Judas Iscariot. Judas Iscariot was once one of Jesus' closest companions. As one of the 12 apostles, he was entrusted with the responsibility of managing the group's finances and assisting those in need during Jesus' ministry. However, during this time, Judas began to have thoughts and actions that would shock everyone. His betrayal was not just a personal decision. It represented a breaking point in his relationship with Jesus, shifting from loyalty to betrayal of high spiritual values. When Judas agreed to betray Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, it was not only a sum of money, but the price he paid for a decision that would change history. His actions not only shattered the trust in him, but also left the apostles and followers deeply wounded. They could not understand why someone they had trusted could betray their teacher in such a defining moment. Although Judas tried to reconcile his feelings of guilt, he could not escape the overwhelming remorse and in despair took his own life. His betrayal left a deep wound in the hearts of those closest to him and led to Jesus' death, an event that marked the beginning of a new religious era, influencing billions of people around the world. In pain and regret, Judas became a symbol of betrayal, while his actions unknowingly sparked the rise of a new religion that would become unforgettable in the history of humanity. Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold was known for his outstanding achievements during the American Revolution, but he would later become one of the most hated traitors in U.S. history. In the early years of the war, Arnold was a brilliant general, playing a crucial role in the victory at the Battle of Saratoga, a turning point in America's fight for independence. However, after facing financial difficulties and being denied a promotion, Arnold slowly lost faith in the very country he had served. This sense of dissatisfaction eventually led Arnold to betray his own ideals. He sold out Fort West Point, a strategically important military base, to the British in exchange for material benefits and advancement in the British Army. This betrayal not only shook the hearts of his comrades, but also weakened the morale of the army fighting for the ideals of freedom. Although Arnold succeeded in damaging American military strategies, his actions brought no long-term benefit. He fled to Britain, living in hatred from both the British and American sides. The name Benedict Arnold quickly became synonymous with betrayal in U.S. history, continuing to haunt those who remember the struggle for independence. His actions not only weakened the trust of the army, but also raised questions about how easily one could abandon their ideals and commitments for petty personal gain. Brutus, Marcus Junius Brutus, was not a typical traitor. He did not betray a teacher or friend for personal ambition, but rather for a noble ideal concerning the freedom of the Roman Republic. Raised under Julius Caesar's protection, Brutus always felt a special bond with this hero. However, when Caesar began showing signs of excessive ambition for power, Brutus felt that the very ideals of the Republic were being threatened. It was then that a painful decision was made. He joined the conspiracy to assassinate Caesar. Unlike other traitors driven by personal gain, Brutus acted out of a lofty ideal. He believed that Caesar's death would save the Republic, but the truth was different. After Caesar's death, there was no preservation of the Republic. Instead, Rome entered an era of empire where power was concentrated in the hands of one man, Augustus. Brutus' actions did not save anything. On the contrary, it delivered a heavy blow to the very ideals he sought to protect. Despite his noble reasons, the aftermath of his actions was the total collapse of the Republic he had believed in. In the eyes of many, Brutus became a symbol of betrayal, even though his actions were driven by idealism. His betrayal was not only the death of a leader, but also the death of the Republic itself, ushering in the rise of the Roman Empire and shifting the political landscape toward a dictatorial age. Vidkun Quisling is one of the most famous traitors in modern history, not only for his actions during World War II, but also for the far-reaching consequences of his betrayal. Quisling, a Norwegian military officer and politician, chose to collaborate with Nazi Germany during the war and became the head of a puppet government under Adolf Hitler's control. When Nazi Germany invaded Norway in 1940, Quisling seized power and declared himself the legitimate leader of the country, betraying the legal Norwegian government. He worked with the Nazis to suppress resistance movements and help them round up Jews to be handed over to Germany. The name Quisling later became an international term for traitors, representing those who betray their own country and people for the benefit of a foreign power. Quisling's betrayal not only struck a heavy blow to Norway's independence and freedom, but also led to the suffering, torture, and death of thousands of people. To the Norwegian people, his actions were a destruction of all trust and hope in the values of freedom they had protected. After the war, Quisling was captured and tried, but his betrayal continued to haunt Norwegian history for decades. Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar is one of the most controversial figures in Indian history, particularly in the context of the British invasion in the 18th century. Initially, he was a capable general in the army of Nawab Bengal, Suraj ud-Dawla. However, Mir Jafar betrayed his master during the Battle of Plassey in 1757, where he collaborated with the British under the command of Robert Clive. When Suraj ud-Dawla was defeated, Mir Jafar was made the new Nawab of Bengal, thanks to British support. However, this betrayal not only destroyed Nawab Bengal, but also paved the way for the British to expand their power and dominate India for more than 2 centuries. Driven by ambition, Mir Jafar placed personal gain above the welfare of his own nation, leading to the domination of the British Empire. Although he secured power for himself, Mir Jafar never gained respect from either the British or the Indians. He was seen as a puppet, a weak leader, and his name became synonymous with betrayal, representing those who are willing to sacrifice their country's interests for personal gain. Wang Jingwei. Wang Jingwei, one of the most controversial figures in Chinese history, was once a strong leader in the fight against Japan but later became a symbol of betrayal. In the early years of the Sino-Japanese War, Wang was one of the prominent leaders in resisting the Japanese invasion and was seen as a national hero by the Chinese people. However, his transformation from a patriot to a collaborator with the enemy marked a dark chapter in China's history. In the 1940s, while his comrades fought valiantly against the invaders, Wang turned his back on this ideal. Under pressure and enticed by power, he chose to side with Japan and became the head of a puppet government in Nanjing. Under Japanese direction, Wang helped strengthen the invaders' hold, creating a deep wound in the hearts of the Chinese people. His actions not only weakened the national spirit of resistance, but also pushed the Chinese nation into a period of subjugation under enemy rule. In the end, when Japan was defeated and the war ended, Wang Jingwei was despised by the entire Chinese nation and seen as a traitor. Despite the support he received from Japan, he could not escape the hatred of those who had once trusted him. His name became a symbol of betrayal, serving as a reminder of how power and ambition can easily undermine national unity and overthrow the very ideals once defended. Philippe Pétain. Philippe Pétain, who was once regarded as a national hero in France after his victory at the Battle of Verdun during the First World War, went through a shocking transformation during World War II. When Nazi Germany invaded France in 1940, Pétain was appointed as the Prime Minister of the Vichy government, a government that collaborated with the Germans to rule much of the country. His decision turned him from a symbol of resilience into one of France's greatest traitors. Rather than resisting the German occupation, Pétain agreed to collaborate with Hitler, forming a puppet government with no opposition. His Vichy regime not only implemented racially discriminatory policies, but also helped Germany suppress resistance movements, arrest, and hand over Jews to Nazi Germany. Pétain even agreed to surrender most of French territory to Germany, creating a dark period in the country's history. After the war, Pétain was arrested and tried for treason. While he tried to justify his actions, claiming that he only did it to protect France from total destruction, the name Philippe Pétain is forever remembered as a symbol of betrayal. His actions not only hurt the national pride of France, but also plunged the country into a difficult era where trust in national leaders was severely undermined. Ion Antonescu, the Prime Minister of Romania during World War II, is another figure who cannot be ignored when discussing betrayal. Initially, Antonescu was an admired general in Romania's army for his military achievements. However, when Romania joined the Axis powers under Nazi Germany's leadership, Antonescu made unforgivable decisions, particularly in his treatment of the Jewish population. With Hitler's support, Antonescu carried out campaigns to oppress and exterminate the Jewish people in Romania and Moldova, causing the deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent lives. His actions not only harmed the Jewish community deeply, but also had long-lasting effects on the Romanian people as the country became embroiled in a brutal war and tyrannical rule. Although Romania eventually withdrew from the Axis powers in 1944, Antonescu was still convicted for his war crimes. After his capture, he was tried and executed for treason. His betrayal was not only in serving Nazi Germany but also in turning his back on human rights and pushing his own nation into devastation and suffering. This betrayal serves as a stark reminder of how a leader's personal ambitions and thirst for power can lead to immense harm. Aldrich Ames. Aldrich Ames, one of the most notorious traitors in the history of U.S. intelligence, caused unimaginable damage to national security and his fellow operatives. With a promising career at the CIA, Ames was entrusted with access to classified documents and information. However, after many years of service, Ames chose a dark path, selling intelligence secrets to the Soviet Union for high pay, damaging the U.S. intelligence network. Over the years, Ames provided crucial information about U.S. agents operating in the Soviet Union and CIA intelligence strategies, allowing the Soviets to dismantle many of the investigations and compromise spy operations. His actions led to the capture and execution of many American agents, plunging the U.S. intelligence community into a major crisis. Ames' betrayal was not only a personal violation of his country, but also left a permanent stain on the history of intelligence agencies. When the truth came out, Ames was arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Though no justification could ever redeem his actions, Ames left behind an undeniable legacy in the intelligence field, a reminder of how dangerous greed and betrayal can be in environments where loyalty is paramount. Aldrich Ames became one of the worst traitors in modern history. James Wilkinson. James Wilkinson, a prominent general in the U.S. military during the 19th century, left a lasting impact with his acts of betrayal that deeply affected the nation. Though trusted within the military, Wilkinson secretly worked as a spy for Spain during the early 19th century, particularly during the War of 1812. He provided Spain with valuable military intelligence regarding U.S. strategies, significantly weakening America's war efforts. Although Wilkinson contributed to some of America's victories, his betrayal eroded trust in the military and the U.S. government. When documents revealing his secret dealings were uncovered, his treason could no longer be denied. However, despite being accused of betrayal, Wilkinson was not appropriately punished. He continued to hold high-ranking positions in the army, but his career was overshadowed by suspicions of loyalty. The name James Wilkinson quickly became synonymous with betrayal in the U.S. military. In his later years, he lived in isolation, facing criticism for his actions. Ephialtes, a name forever linked with betrayal in the legendary Battle of Thermopylae, is one of the most despised figures in ancient Greek history. While the Spartan warriors led by King Leonidas bravely fought against the mighty Persian invaders, Ephialtes betrayed his fellow countrymen. Knowing of a secret path that led into the Spartan rear, Ephialtes guided the Persian forces, allowing them to bypass the Greek defense and attack from behind, resulting in the devastating defeat of the Greek army. His actions not only harmed his fellow warriors, but also destroyed the trust in loyalty during such critical battles. Ephialtes' betrayal didn't end at the battlefield. He was hunted down and eventually killed in a bloody revenge. Though he had personal reasons for his actions, the price of betrayal was steep. His name became a living symbol of betrayal in Greek history, representing a man who chose personal gain over the defense of his homeland and the ideals of freedom. Richard III, one of the last kings of the Plantagenet dynasty, became a symbol of betrayal in English history. During the Wars of the Roses, Richard not only faced competition from his rivals, but also engaged in political machinations to seize the throne. Richard III became king after overthrowing his brother, Edward IV, and took power from his young nephew, Edward V. The story of his betrayal began when he suspected that Edward IV's children would pose a threat to his claim to the throne. Richard decided to imprison his nephews in the Tower of London, where they were believed to have been murdered, though there is no conclusive evidence. Killing legitimate heirs made Richard a traitor in the eyes of the public. Richard's betrayal not only shattered trust in the monarchy, but also set the stage for further conflict between the factions, eventually leading to the downfall of the Plantagenet dynasty. Though Richard III tried to justify his actions, the cost of betrayal led to his death at the Battle of Bosworth, where he was defeated by Henry Tudor, who later became Henry VII. The name Richard III became legendary for betrayal in English history, illustrating how ambition and power can destroy even the closest relationships. Aaron Burr is remembered for his act of betrayal in the power struggles of the late 18th century. As vice president under Thomas Jefferson, Burr had a promising political career, but it was ruined by his schemes for power and his relationships with opposition groups in politics. Burr is most famous for his historical duel with Alexander Hamilton, in which Burr killed Hamilton, one of America's founding fathers and his political adversary. However, beyond this duel, Burr's betrayal became more evident in his plot to secede from the United States with the Western Territories, where he planned to create a separate nation and seize power for himself. Though Burr's plot ultimately failed, and he was tried for treason, his political betrayal left a deep mark on U.S. history. His name became linked with division and instability in the early years of the country, turning him into a symbol of dangerous political schemes and political compromises. Albert Speer, the architect of Nazi Germany and Minister of Armaments in Hitler's government, was one of Hitler's closest aides. However, even though he did not directly participate in the massacres, Speer is still considered one of the key individuals responsible for supporting the structure of the fascist regime. The magnificent architectural works he designed, such as the Berlin Olympic Stadium, played a significant role in bolstering Hitler's image and Nazi Germany's public perception. Speer's betrayal lies in the fact that he agreed to work for a regime that not only brought barbarity to humanity, but also directly caused the deaths of millions. However, after the war, Speer showed deep remorse for his actions. He admitted that he had overlooked Hitler's mistakes and crimes, and he acknowledged that had he acted differently, he might have prevented some of the disasters. Despite his late remorse, Speer had to bear responsibility for the things he did in the past. The consequences of his betrayal were not only the crimes committed by the Nazi regime, but also the loss of public trust in those who held power in the German government. After serving his prison sentence, Speer spent the rest of his life writing books and acknowledging his mistakes, but his actions couldn't erase the wounds they had caused. Leopold II, King of Belgium, is often not as frequently mentioned as other figures on lists of notorious historical figures, but his actions during the colonization of Congo earned him a place among the greatest traitors in colonial history. The reason for this label is rooted in the deep betrayal he committed, not just against the people of Congo, but also against the very principles of justice and humanity. Leopold II took control of Congo under the guise of bringing civilization and humanitarian aid to the region. He promised to improve the lives of the Congolese, but these promises were lies. He turned Congo into his personal colony, exploiting its people for personal gain. The locals were subjected to brutal labor, forced to harvest rubber under harsh conditions. Millions of Congolese died due to these cruel practices. The real betrayal came with Leopold's false promises and his deception of the world. Instead of offering help, he imposed a regime of terror. His exploitation of Congo for his personal enrichment was nothing short of treachery. The extent of his cruelty was only uncovered after humanitarian organizations exposed the horrors he inflicted. Leopold's betrayal went beyond the people of Congo. It was a betrayal of human rights and justice itself. Leopold II's legacy is one of unimaginable brutality, and his actions are forever etched in history as a symbol of exploitation and greed. He promised civilization, but delivered death and suffering, making him one of the most infamous figures in colonial history.